Hello everyone, my name is Clantis and welcome to the Iron Bars of my True Crime YouTube channel. So without further ado, let's get into today's case, and it is the cruel murder of Palesa Madiba. Now this case is a highly requested video by my South African viewers that have been begging me to do this story for a while now. So here we are. So Palesa Madiba was born on the 7th of November 1992, making her a Scorpio. She was one of 9 children to Makhosi and Simon Madiba, and she was born in Diepkloof Township of Soweto in Johannesburg, South Africa. So I tried to find out if she was any relation to Nelson Mandela's family because they are also Madiba, but I couldn't find anything. But anyways, there are still Ngunis. So now in the Nguni culture, whenever we share the same surname, even if we've never met before, guess what? We are related. There is a Nguni rule of thumb. By Nguni, I'm talking about the tribes like Zulus, Xhosas, Ndebeles, as well as Swatis. Those are what you would call Ngunis. And whenever we share the same surname, we are related automatically. I know other cultures, they don't play that game, but in the Nguni culture, yeah, that is what we do. And unfortunately, we also cannot marry people that share the same surname as us or tribe's name as well that are related to that surname. So Palesa Madiba and her family decided to relocate to another province of South Africa called the Free State. Now I tried to dig and find out why did they leave Soweto and relocated to Free State. So the only assumptions that I have is that one of the parents may have gotten a job in the Free State, and as a result they needed to pack up and relocate there. Palesa Madiba attended a Boshoff Primary School in the Free State and later on moved to Boshoff Hoër School, meaning high school, in the Free State, where she matriculated or graduated high school. And then when she was done with high school, she decided to relocate back to Johannesburg, particularly to Diepkloof, where she lived with a grandmother. It turns out that the Free State was not Palesa Madiba's cup of tea, because she knew that relocating to Johannesburg, she will be able to pursue her dreams, because that is where the land of milk and honey is at after all. So Palesa Madiba was also a very smart girl. She was quite intelligent, as everybody said she was, including her family, friends, as well as her high school. So much so that when she came back to Johannesburg, she went and enrolled herself at the University of Johannesburg, where she decided to study Bachelor of Commerce, or BCom as we call it here in South Africa, but majoring in accounting. She excelled academically both in high school and primary school, and she was also showing very huge promises when she was at university. It was clear that Palesa had her dreams set and she knew where she wanted to go in life. So I almost forgot, Palesa in high school, she participated in almost all the sports there was because she was a very active girl. She believed that you needed to keep healthy, you need to keep fit in order for you to excel in your academics. So she participated in whatever she could get her hands on, and she was very good at sports as well as extracurricular activities that she participated in. Even at university, she made sure that she did not relax. Apart from her studies, she also got herself a job at the student village, and she also added another stream of income by doing some promotional work for big alcohol brands, where she would meet with celebrities as well as other people that she admired. So if you don't know anything about the University of Johannesburg, the students there, they know how to party, and when they party hard. Trends were set by them. New things were seen from them, and these guys, they knew how to balance school as well as partying. Some, unfortunately, they would get too deep into it and end up dropping out of university, which is quite unfortunate. So Palesa, she knew how to balance her schoolwork, her jobs, her two jobs, which was working at the student village, as well as doing promotional work for big alcohol brands where, like I said, she would meet celebrities and things of that nature. She had great friends who loved her, whom she also loved back. They would hang out and do stuff together, and at the same time, they would form study groups. So to make sure that they move forward together and they don't leave anybody behind. Like I said, guys, the University of Johannesburg can be a tough university to be at, considering the fact that it is also like a party spot. Let's also not forget the fact that in South Africa, many families are very devoted Christians. So Palesa Madiba was no different to that rule. She was very devoted to her faith. She worshipped at a church called Calvary Worship Center in Soweto, where she also participated in the activities of the church, like the youth group, as well as Bible studies and other activities that the church may have for students as well as kids. So people that came across Palesa Madiba say that she was kind, she always had a smile on her face, and she always treated everybody equally. It did not matter whether you came from a wealthy family or you came from the poorest of the poor family. She treated everyone like human beings, and people really liked her for that. However, some people said her kindness also made her to trust people a lot. So on the 9th of August 2013, so in South Africa, the 9th of August, it is a public holiday known as Women's Day. So on this particular day, the 9th of August was on a Friday, meaning it was going to be a long weekend. So on this day, Palesa and her best friend decided that they were going to spend some time together and enjoy the long weekend and catch up on other things that they have not caught on during the time they were busy with school and work and all the other stuff that she was doing in her own life. Now, this friend that she was going to hang out with, she did not go to the same university as her. As a matter of fact, this young lady, she was working. She did not attend any college or university at the time. So Palesa wanted to hang out with her and basically catch up and have some little girl talk here and there during the course of the weekend. Now, once again, in South Africa, when it's a holiday, it is party, party, party. Most of the time, what we do on public holidays is braaiing. Braaiing basically is barbecue. You guys call it barbecue wherever you are in the world. I think South Africa is the only country in the world that calls barbecue a braai. I think other Southern African countries may also call it a braai, but I know South Africa is a braai, it's not a barbecue. So if you are confused what is a braai, it is basically a cookout. So this friend's name was Tshidi Mkhwanazi. So on the 9th of August 2013, Palesa Madiba then took a taxi from Diepkloof all the way to Phiri, where Tshidi Mkhwanazi lived. That is her best friend that she was going to spend the long weekend with. And when she got there, of course, like girls do, they were very happy to see each other. The family of Tshidi as well knew who Palesa was, which is the grandmother. Tshidi also lived with her own grandmother in Phiri, Soweto. So everybody was quite happy to see Palesa there, including the neighborhood, because like I said earlier, Palesa was known to be bubbly and very friendly, and she greeted everybody on the street. Like I said, she treated people like equals. So as a result, when she got to Phiri, Soweto, everybody was happy to see her, and then the weekend began, and they were braaiing and they were having a great time, like girls do, like basically having these slumber parties. I don't know what girls do when they are having slumber parties. Of course, you can imagine there will be boy talk there and a relationship advice there, and buying some meat there and talking to other people that may have come and joined them during the course of that long weekend. So on the 12th of August 2013, this is now a Monday, it's after the long weekend. So Tshidi's grandmother woke up first and prepared herself for work. After her grandmother had done preparing and she left, and then Tshidi woke up together with Palesa. Once again, they continued having their girl talk, probably reminiscing about the weekend and whatever else that took place during the long weekend. And when Tshidi was done bathing and and changing. That is when she told Palesa, listen, before you leave, make sure that you take the key that I will use to come into the house to my uncle who lived in the backyard. Now, if you have not seen South African townships, most township houses in South Africa would have a back room, not a cottage, but a back room. Usually the back room, it is used by one of the kids. Usually it's the eldest son of the family who would want his own privacy, who would want his own space, and basically kind of like be independent but not exactly independent. So then the family will then build them a house outside, whether it's one room, sometimes it's like 2 bedrooms, sometimes it depends on the size of the yard. If the yard is big enough, then they would build them their own house in the yard. So then you would have the main house and then you would have the back room. So Tshidi's uncle had a back room where he stayed, and then there was the main house where Palesa, Tshidi, and the grandmother slept in. So when Tshidi left for work, she instructed Palesa to take the key and give it to her uncle before she left for school. So on the 12th of August 2013, Palesa's diary was to get up, prepare for college, and then meet her boyfriend and write some few tests here and there on campus and then go home. So when Tshidi left with that instruction, Palesa was like, sure, I know the rule because I have come here before. Tshidi's uncle, Palesa considered him as an uncle as well. Anyway, that is an African cultural thing where my best friend's father or my best friend's brother or my best friend's uncle is also my brother, father, as well as uncle. So basically, that's how she saw Tshidi's uncle as her own uncle too. Now, during the day of the 12th of August 2013, Tshidi would call Palesa's phone, but unfortunately, Palesa's phone was switched off. And so she then tried to call Palesa's boyfriend to find out if he is with Tshidi. And that is when the boyfriend said, no, I'm not with her, even though she sent me a WhatsApp message early in the morning to let me know that we are going to meet on campus at this particular time. So it is that particular time and she's still not here yet. So I'm assuming probably she's still stuck in class, because I know they are writing some sort of test or a pop-up test or something of that nature. So he was like, unfortunately, she hasn't called me yet and her phone is off, which is quite strange because Palesa's phone was never off. They didn't think anything of it. They thought, okay, maybe it's because she's writing a test, and probably the rule in the exam room was to switch off your phones, and that's how her phone is off. So then they thought, okay, it's fine. And so as the day was progressing, that is when Palesa's boyfriend tried to call Palesa several times and her phone was still off. This is 4 hours later. Her exam would have finished a long time ago, and she should have, and by that time they should have met already and did whatever it is that they had planned to do for that day, but still her phone was off. So while the boyfriend was trying to figure what's going on and try and find Palesa, that is when one of Palesa's sister called the boyfriend to ask if he has seen Palesa. And that is when the boyfriend is like, I'm also trying to get a hold of her, and I've been trying since 11 this morning because we're supposed to meet and then execute our plans for the day, and her phone was off, which is quite strange as far as I'm concerned. Maybe it was because she was writing a test or an exam, I'm not sure. So the sister was like, oh, okay, fine, if you do get hold of her, please let her know that I called. And the boyfriend was like, okay, cool, I will do that. So when Tshidi got back home that evening, once again she tried to call Palesa to find out how was the day, how did everything go, and things of that nature. But once again, Palesa's phone was off. And that was like, this is very strange. So Tshidi then decided to call one of Palesa's siblings to find out if they've seen Palesa or heard anything from Palesa. So Palesa's siblings was like, but she was supposed to be, we know that she's with you. Why are you asking us about her when we know that she's with you? So Tshidi was like, yeah, she was with me. We spent the long weekend together, and then we parted this morning when I gave her the instructions to leave the house key to my uncle's room before she left, and that was the last time I saw her. So I'm just calling to find out how was the day, how everything went, and how her test went, and things of that nature. So the family was like, maybe something isn't right here. So once again, they contacted the boyfriend to find out if he did manage to find her. And the boyfriend is like, no, I still have not found her, and her phone is still off. So this is when they started to be like, no, something is definitely not right here. Something must have happened to Palesa when she left the Mkhwanazi household in the morning. But before that, Tshidi had promised the sister as well as the boyfriend that she was going to go to her uncle and find out from him if Palesa did come and leave the keys with him. And that is when the uncle said yes, she did come and she left the keys, and she said she was going to college because she had some tests. And so of course this is the same thing that Tshidi knew that was Palesa's plan for the day. And so she relayed the message back to the boyfriend of Palesa as well as the sibling that has called, and they were like, no, something isn't right here. So that is when Palesa's boyfriend as well as one of Palesa's sister decided to, like, you know what, we need to go and report her as a missing person with the police. And so they agreed, and indeed the following day, that is where they went and they told the police that Palesa Madiba is missing and they would like to report her as missing. And the police were like, okay, obviously, of course, all the stuff that the police will ask and to determine if indeed she is a missing person. So there is one of the things that in South Africa we use when a person is active, or maybe a person that goes missing now and again. The police will not necessarily take that case seriously because it is their habit to go missing now and again. But with Palesa, she's a person who is disciplined, and whenever she goes out, she always lets the family knows as well as the friend and her boyfriend know where she's going, especially when she's going to be doing promotional work for those big alcoholic brands that she does as an extra income stream that she does. So everybody was like, okay, this is unlike Palesa, and the police indeed agreed and they opened a file of a missing person. So while they were busy doing that, Palesa's friends, university friends, were like, you know what, they are going to print flyers of a missing person, and they also created a hashtag, Find Palesa Madiba. I remember I was one of those people in 2013 who actually retweeted that hashtag multiple times. Every time I saw it, I will retweet it. I will also make some tweets as well, asking people, guys, if you see her, please make sure that you alert the police or you alert the family. And that is when this hashtag trended. Every person from every walk of life in South Africa were now looking for Palesa Madiba. Everybody was worried. Everybody was like praying for the safe return of Palesa Madiba. And a year passed, and still there was no Palesa Madiba. 2015, still there was no Palesa Madiba. However, so on the 16th of December 2015, that is when the police got an anonymous call from somebody, but I think they already know who the person is, but they decided to keep the person anonymous, who called the police and said, you know what, Palesa Madiba, the one that you guys have been looking for, if you go to the backyard of Tshidi Mkhwanazi's grandmother's house, you will find her buried there. So the police, of course, they have been having a really, really bad name since the disappearance of Palesa Madiba, and the police were basically being told that they are useless. How come they cannot find this girl? A person cannot just disappear into thin air. And the family of Palesa Madiba were also frustrated because it's been 2 years now that she has gone missing and nobody seems to know where she had gone to, and the police had tried their level best because, to be honest, The police did do everything they could. They jumped on this case the moment it was reported. Unfortunately, because somebody had done something to Tshidi, and one of the things that the family also did was to communicate with the Johannesburg Metro Police to find out if there was any accident on the 12th of August 2013 between Phiri and Diepkloof, or Diepkloof to Johannesburg, or Johannesburg to Auckland Park, or Auckland Park to Soweto. So basically they were just tracing any steps that Palesa may have taken on the 12th of August 2013. And the Johannesburg Metro Police reported back and said, on the 12th of August 2013, there were never even one accident. So they basically hit a dead end. So the friends as well as the family, they printed a missing persons t-shirt. It was written, please find Palesa, help us find Palesa. It was quite sad because I remember some of us never stopped retweeting that hashtag find Palesa Madiba. So the Madiba family were not having it. They were like, there is nowhere that Palesa would just disappear out of thin air. Somebody knows something. And they always pointed a finger at Tshidi and her family. They were like, there is no way that the Mkhwanazi family do not know what had happened. When the police started doing the investigations, the first thing that they did was to go to Tshidi Mkhwanazi's house, where they questioned Tshidi about the unrolling of the day of the 12th. So basically she repeated what had happened on the 12th. They woke up. The grandmother was the first to wake up. She prepared herself and went to work. And then Tshidi woke up. She also prepared herself for work and gave Palesa instructions to leave the key with the uncle before she left for campus, because the uncle will also need to use the main house for bathing, eating, as well as other stuff before he left for work as well. So basically that is exactly what they told the police. The grandmother told the police, I woke up, the girls were still sleeping, I prepared and I went to work. They both of them were still in the house when I left. So now the police then found out that in the backyard lived the uncle. His name is Dumisani Mkhwanazi. So the police went and questioned him as well. They asked him, so did you see Palesa? He too. So he also stuck to his story, where he relayed what he had told Tshidi about the whereabouts of Palesa. He said, yes, Palesa at midday came to him and gave him the key and said she was now going to campus. Now, she had an exam or a test in the morning, not midday, in the morning of the 12th of August. But the uncle, who was supposed to be at work by midday, said Palesa came and gave him the key at midday on the 12th of August. Now, let's do the math here. Actually, it's not mathing, because Palesa had an exam in the morning and she was also going to meet her boyfriend at 11 a.m. after writing her test. And the uncle says she came and gave him the key at midday. Now the police were like, aren't you supposed to be at work by midday? He said, yeah, he decided not to go to work on that particular day because he had partied hard over the long weekend and he was still hungover. So anyways, the police then decided to leave him alone, and then they basically, I think they accepted his explanation, and then they started canvassing the neighborhood, where they went to the neighbors and they asked if they saw Palesa on the 12th of August 2013, if they saw her leave the Mkhwanazi house. Everybody was like, we know Palesa, and when Palesa would have left the house, she would have greeted everybody good morning, and everybody would have seen it, because in the township, if you've never been to a South African township, the streets are always full. they are always buzzing with people from 6 in the morning, in fact, from 5 in the morning all the way to 11 p.m. It's just busy with people. So the people in Phiri were like, we would have seen her, and definitely one or two or three or most people would have seen and also spoken to her. So everybody was like, no, we did not see her. And that was quite strange for the police, because if she was that kind of an active person that was well liked, it's very strange that nobody saw her that particular morning leave Tshidi Mkhwanazi's house to college. So like I mentioned, 2013 finished, no Palesa. 2014 finished, still no Palesa. 2015 all the way till about the 16th of December 2015, when the police got that anonymous call that told the police that they would find Palesa's remains at the back of Tshidi's grandmother's house. So the police were like, okay, like I had mentioned earlier, the police had gotten a lot of criticism, negative criticism about how useless they were. So at this point in time, they were extremely desperate to find any kind of lead, any call, any tip, anything that they got. They picked it up and they went to town with it. So this anonymous call, they did not ignore it. They basically went to the Johannesburg High Court, where they applied for a search warrant, and indeed probable cause was there to search the Mkhwanazi house, and they were granted the search warrant, and off they went to Tshidi Mkhwanazi's house, where they gave the grandmother the search warrant, and they told her that they need to dig her backyard because they believe that Palesa's remains may be buried there. Now, one thing that I did not mention, after Palesa's disappearance, the Madiba family went to the Mkhwanazis and said, hey guys, you gotta tell us something. There is no way that you don't know what had happened to our daughter. So Dumisani decided to go to the police and open a case of intimidation. Two, he also got himself, as well as the Mkhwanazi household, a restraining order against the Madibas. So the Madibas could no longer go to the Mkhwanazis and ask any questions that they may have about their long-lost daughter. And so it was just a mess, because they felt that they were being harassed. They felt that they were being falsely accused of things they had no idea about. So now come to the 16th of December. And by the way, the 16th of December in South Africa is a public holiday. It is the Day of Reconciliation. So the police, here they were with a search warrant, and then they gave the grandmother, they said they need to dig the backyard. And then indeed, when they got to the backyard, there was like some sort of paving with planks and some rocks as well as bricks. And they started removing those bricks as well as planks and other stuff that were covering that area. So they began to dig. So as they were starting to dig, they came across what looked like a human arm. And so they dug even some more. On the other side, the media was there. The media was called. The would-be crime scene was cordoned off, and people were curious, like, what's going on at the Mkhwanazis? And the grandmother, Tshidi's grandmother, was telling anybody and everybody that was willing to listen to her that she doesn't know why the police are busy digging her backyard, because the only thing that is buried in her backyard is a dog. Now, I'm not sure what she meant by that, whether Palesa was a dog or there was a real dog that had died and they buried in the backyard. I don't know. So like I said, as they began to dig, boom, they come across what looked like a human arm. And so they carefully then started digging and excavating around this arm. And then eventually, as they were starting to gently remove the debris and all the other stuff that was sitting onto this, what looked like a human skeleton, and the more it revealed that indeed this is a skeleton of a human being. Nobody knew at this point in time whether it was Palesa Madiba or somebody else. So as they continued digging, they basically took out the skeletons of the ground, and then they placed it in a forensic vehicle, and it was taken to the lab for examination. So there were few examinations that they were going to do with this body, one of which was DNA to find out if this indeed Palesa Madiba or somebody else, and also the cause of death, what it was, and other stuff as well that they wanted to examine. So it did not take very long when the DNA came back and it confirmed that the skeletal remains were that of Palesa Madiba. So it's confirmed that Palesa Madiba was murdered in Tshidi Mkhwanazi's house. Now the question is, who killed her? Because that family consists of the grandmother, that is Tshidi's grandmother, Tshidi herself, as well as the uncle who lived in the back room. So between the three of them, who had killed Palesa Madiba? Now, you would think that the police would make an arrest after discovering the remains of Palesa Madiba. No, that did not take place at all. Now, as far as I know in South Africa, if the police come to your house with a search warrant and they find stolen goods or they find a dead body, the police places whoever is in the house under arrest, and then read them their rights, and then put them in a waiting cell. The following day, they are going to greet the magistrate, and then that is where all the official procedures of the criminal justice will begin, including going to the High Court, where they will go and explain themselves why there was a dead body in the house, especially one that was concealed underground. So that did not happen. Tshidi's grandmother was not arrested. Tshidi herself was not arrested. Dumisani, which is Tshidi's uncle, was also not arrested. Now, why Palesa was found in the backyard? So that is when the Mkhwanazi family started making all kinds of explanations and excuses that whoever called the police anonymously is the one that is framing them, and they want the Mkhwanazis to be arrested for something they did not do, blah 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 blah. And then when you do think about it, you're like, this does not make sense. Who in the world goes to work, comes back from work, and sees that their backyard doesn't look exactly the same as it were all these other days? Or at least the grandmother, which is Tshidi's grandmother and Dumisani's mother, she could have went to one of them and say, hey, did anybody do some work in my backyard, something that I don't know about? No, they did not ask those questions. Neither did Dumisani go to his mother and say, did you do some work in the backyard? No, he didn't. Tshidi also did not ask her uncle as well as her grandmother if they did something in the backyard, which kind of like also leads me to think that they knew something. I think that the uncle must have confessed either to his mother or Tshidi and say, listen, I may have made a mistake with Palesa when she brought the key, and accidentally this is what had happened, or intentionally this is what had happened, or I was absent-minded and this is what happened. And so they kept it a secret and hoped that it will never be revealed. But it's also said that the person that had called the police was the next door neighbor, who probably heard some digging in the backyard when Dumisani thought nobody was looking, and that's the person probably who called. So much so that Tshidi herself said that the next door people are the ones that were framing her family with the dead body that was found in their backyard, when they knew absolutely nothing about it. So it just doesn't make sense. This whole thing is bizarre as far as I am concerned. So when the police were at Tshidi's house basically digging the backyard, Tshidi's grandmother called Tshidi, who was at work, and said, hey, you better come home. The police are here and they are digging the backyard. They think they will find Palesa there. So immediately Palesa left work, and I think she told her boss, you know what, something is happening at home. I need to get there as soon as possible. While Tshidi was coming back home, she called her uncle and said, hey, listen, the police are at the house. They're apparently digging the backyard. And apparently, this is now Tshidi's testimony in court, that she became a star witness for the state, where she told the court that her uncle said to her, listen, I'm not coming home. I'm afraid that the community is going to beat me up. So we will meet each other at the police station so that I can be safe. Now, this is what I also found out while I was busy researching this case, was the fact that this Dumisani Mkhwanazi guy, this is Tshidi's uncle, he was highly feared in Phiri. People were terrified of him. And it is also possible that whoever called the police was very scared of Dumisani. And so for some reason, they garnered enough strength and bravado and called the police anonymously and said, you know what, the body of Palesa is in the backyard, period. So they were terrified. There are a lot of stories that people were saying, but in camera, they were like, you know what, we are scared of this guy. He is a well-known criminal who carries a gun as well as intimidates people. Basically, he was a community bully. And so people knew that Palesa was in the backyard. He killed by Tshidi's uncle. But now that this has been revealed, other people, when they spoke, they were still fearful to have their faces shown on camera in the by the media who were there. But anyways, when Palesa's remains were exhumed, people in the neighborhood were shocked, beyond shocked. They started saying that now they cannot trust anybody. They are now looking at each other with a side eye, like, how can I trust you with my children? Some even said that they no longer allow their children to go and play with other kids in other families, because who can they trust anymore? So this entire situation turned a community upside down. Like Dumisani Mkhwanazi had said, the community was going to beat him out of anger once they discover what's in the backyard. And indeed, the community of Phiri were upset. They were outraged that the Mkhwanazis have concealed Palesa's body for all these years. Nobody's been saying anything, especially the Mkhwanazis. So the community were like, there's no way they didn't know. They knew that Palesa was buried in their backyard. So eventually, in February of 2019, Dumisani Mkhwanazi, this is Tshidi's uncle, was placed under arrest for the murder of Palesa Madiba. December 2015 all the way to February of 2019, the murderer was still not arrested. Only in February of 2019, Dumisani Mkhwanazi is placed under arrest for the murder of Palesa Madiba. So when the police were asked what took them 3.5 years to arrest the murderer, the police, this is what they said. You know what? They wanted to secure a successful prosecution. They also wanted to secure a successful conviction, as well as long years in prison for the murder of Palesa Madiba once they find the perpetrator. They said that it took patience as well as discipline in order for them to come to the conclusion that it was Dumisani Mkhwanazi, Tshidi's uncle, who murdered Palesa Madiba. So the investigating officer said that he had to build like some kind of a trail on Dumisani Mkhwanazi. Just wanted to study and understand the alleged killer. They wanted to see who he associates himself with. They wanted to see if he drank alcohol. They basically wanted to follow his lifestyle, what kind of a person he was. And indeed, he was a very dodgy character. Some people even say that, I'm not sure how true this is, because I tried digging. I dug and I dug and I could not find any information. However, in the township, people always know stories about each other. So apparently, at some point in Dumisani's life, he shot and killed a person in broad daylight. Broad daylight. And he was arrested, but unfortunately, some technicality or some reason, he was acquitted of that murder. And now he basically walked out. And the second part that I also looked for, I think with this one there is some truth, even though the information is sketchy. He was arrested and convicted for robbery and assault. As a matter of fact, at the time when Palesa went missing, he had just been released from prison for robbery as well as assault, where he spent some significant time in prison. So the other thing that the police had said was that the reason why Dumisani had been evading the law for so long since the death of Palesa Madiba is because they believe that Dumisani had connections in the South African police service. These policemen were the ones that were guiding him on how to evade the police. I think Dumisani did consult one of the policemen and said, you know what, I killed a person. How do I conceal this so that nobody ever finds out or point or link that murder to me? And the police gave him the tip on how to get away with murder, basically. So that is how he has been able to evade the police for a good 8 years since the murder of Palesa Madiba. Apparently, a member of the community approached the investigating officer and told that he overheard a conversation between two policemen and a member of the community speaking about basically these two policemen sent a member of the community to run to Dumisani and tell him that, hey, you need to make sure that you make a run for it because the police are on you, because the police are on their way to arrest you. So clearly, Dumisani did have some sort of link in the SAPS, South African Police Service, and they were giving him all these tips, and that is how he was able to evade the law for so long. So Dumisani Mkhwanazi was then taken to Gauteng High Court. So Dumisani Mkhwanazi pleaded not guilty to all the charges that were leveled against him, and they were murder, robbery with aggravating circumstances, defeating the administration of justice, and the unlawful possession of a firearm and ammunition. So to say that the case was anything but, it was just a mess building up to his trial because it will get postponed so many times. It turns out at some point, one of the reasons why his trial would get postponed is that whenever in the morning in his waiting cell, in the morning apparently in prison, they do like head counts. And so when he was called, he did not come out of his cell. Now, why the police did not go in and fetch him because he needed to be in court, only goodness knows why they did not do that. As a result of that, his case was postponed. At one point, even his own lawyer decided not to pitch. As a result, his case got postponed. So his case just kept getting postponed. Then came the paramedic, which also disturbed the trial. There was a time where we were on lockdown for like 10 weeks or something like that. So all courts were closed in South Africa. As a result of that, his trial got delayed even some more. However, on the 4th of December 2020, Dumisani Mkhwanazi was found guilty of all charges that were laid against him. The court gallery erupted in celebrations, and they could not even hear the judge putting them into order, banging his justice hammer. Basically, he just ended up giving up because people were so excited and happy. That also included a lot of people in South Africa who got involved with this case from the beginning. Remember the hashtag Find Palesa all the way to the 4th of December 2020 when Dumisani Mkhwanazi was found guilty for the murder of Palesa Madiba. So that chapter had come to an end. However, at mitigation of sentence, Dumisani Mkhwanazi decided not to take the stand to mitigate his sentence, to basically explain himself. Why? What the hell did he do to that poor girl? Why? Just why? So he was like, he actually had no emotions, and he just couldn't care less. So when the judge was handing down the judgment, these are the words that he said to Dumisani Mkhwanazi, and I quote, "You did not make a good impression on the court during your testimony. His denial of the evidence that directly linked him was not substantiated. He had this particular tendency of introducing new evidence when he found himself in a corner." So on the 26th of February 2021, Dumisani Mkhwanazi's sentences were handed down by Judge Prince Manyati. So right before the judge handed down his sentences of Dumisani Mkhwanazi, he uttered some few words to Dumisani, and this is what he said, and I quote, "The beautiful young lady of 20 was killed by you. You betrayed her trust as she regarded you as an uncle and expected you to protect her. At all material times, you displayed an attitude of catch me if you can. You pretended as if you shared the pain and suffering of the family when you knew you were the cause of their suffering. You thought your secret was safe. You would take it to your grave. You treated her as your property, which did not deserve a proper send-off." Dumisani Mkhwanazi was sentenced to 20 years for murder of Palesa Madiba, 3 years for the theft of Madiba's cell phone, 8 years for defeating the ends of justice, 10 years for possession of an unlicensed firearm, and 2 years for possession of ammunition. The court ordered that the sentence for the unlawful possession of firearm and ammunition run concurrently with that for murder. So you know what? I have a problem. So I have this huge problem with concurrent sentences because I feel that it kind of like become lenient to the perpetrator. I want the perpetrator to serve sentences for each of the crimes that they have committed, not run concurrently, because it makes the sentence extremely short. For example, Dumisani Mkhwanazi is going to go to an effective 31 years imprisonment instead of 43 years imprisonment. Do you get what I'm trying to say here? So for this concurrently, I hate it. I hate it with everything I've got in my body. Anyways, that is it, guys, with the cruel murder of Palesa Madiba. So please make sure that the first thing that you do is give this video a like. If you are not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and make sure that you click the bell notification so that you do not miss out on any of my true crime uploads. Once again, I would also highly appreciate it if you left me a comment and also share this video far and wide. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time with a new true crime video. Goodbye.